Howdy, friends, and welcome to The Story Field. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At The Story Field, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Okay, Storyfield. I have a new friend on today, Grant Gustafson. Grant, man, welcome to the show. You know we're excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really
So
stoked.
before the for us Texas people who may be listening, before the show, Grant and I were talking about, and he showed me a view of Mount St. Helens out his window. So he walked me over, looked in, and you could see it. So I was like, sure enough, man, you're up there where you can actually see a mountain. So all of us
Yes,
Texas people are a little bit jealous of that because I'm sure it's like 55 and perfect out there and sunny. But
it is today. You are correct. Yes.
it's not always the case. What?
Yeah. Oh yeah, about half the year it's gray and rainy, but we make up for it in the summertime. So it
Okay.
is stunning right now.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay. So we like to run, the podcast just really story centered. And,
Mhm.
I was led to have you on because I think you probably hit some rough patches in life. But first, I want to just tell us, like, introduce yourself, just however you would, like, where you live. Obviously, I gave it away a little bit for those who have any kind of sense of like
Yeah.
landmarks. Um, and then I want to get into like growing up, and then we'll just kind of walk through it, man. And
Oh
because
wow. Yeah,
I think there's some people who can be encouraged, and I want them
sure.
to hear your story. So let's get
For
going.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, my name's Grant Gustafson. I live here in the Pacific Northwest. I actually grew up in this area where I'm at right now, but I spent about 15 years in Seattle. Went to University of Washington. Met my wife. She was actually from Portland, but I met her in Seattle. And then after we got married, we moved back down here, which was kind of an unexpected thing. Maybe get into that later in the story. But yeah, worked for about 15 years in vocational ministry in some capacity.
Okay.
And then part of what led us down here led to a whole season of having to give that up for a time and figure out what the Lord was asking us to do. And now I just feel like my vocation is following Jesus, and whatever I'm doing for work changes day to day.
Maybe
So,
that's why I was so drawn to you. Like
yeah.
like-minded people. Well, okay, so
Yeah.
tell me about your growing up. Did you have brothers or sisters? How was your family life? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you're a believer, but did you grow up a believer, that type of thing? So like start us back then.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll just get right off with the challenging stuff. So I was,
Sorry, man.
no, it's good. I was in the womb when my parents separated. And so I have an older brother. He was probably one and a half at the time, maybe two. And yeah, my mom and dad had just a really tough marriage. And, without dishonoring my dad or anything, he just had some real challenges, especially at that time in his life. And it was a messy divorce. And by the time I was maybe 1 year old is when the divorce was finalized, and you know it was just a challenging time. There was restraining orders and all this stuff that I don't even know if I know the full story. It's kind of one of those things where I was so young, and there's different sides to the story and everything like that. So sometimes I'm just like, well, just we'll just let it be. But I know it was really challenging. I know that there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of stress and anxiety on both sides. And so, yeah, I pretty much grew up um, with my mom, and I'd go over to my dad's like kind of every other weekend. And my mom got remarried when I was 7. And I would say because I was like more able to take in the world as a 7-year old than I was as a 1-year old. the remarriage was actually probably harder for me because now we are in this blended family. My stepdad had a son. He's a few years younger than me. And so now all of a sudden our family of three turned into this family of five. And, there were some challenges there too. I mean, I
Was your
think,
brother going with you back and forth with your dad?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that anyone who grows up in like a divorced home, blended family will probably tell you like it just becomes your normal. As a kid, you're not like thinking about like, well, this is not how it's supposed to be and this is awful. You just kind of accept things as they come. And then I think it's like later in your life, all that stuff comes up. Maybe you get married, maybe you start having kids, and then you realize like, man, my childhood was really messed up. Like what happened, I never had two parents in the same home that were, married and yeah, it's all this stuff. So yeah, I think I had to unpack a lot of that stuff later in life. And for whatever reason, I think that's just how it happens. I've heard someone say it this way that it's like the enemy plants landmines in our story that we don't step on until we hit certain points in life. And then all of a sudden it blows up and we're like, where is this coming from? Whatever you want to call it, repressed trauma, whatever. We just have a way of dealing with stuff until it hits a point. And so I've been walking through a lot of that just in these last few years, and I'm almost 35 now. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, the landmines are just now. No, I get it.
yeah,
It's our, and I feel like it starts with us, with guys.
yeah,
Sometimes when you start having kids, this when you realize maybe like, mm,
yes.
mm,
Yeah, I've never seen myself do this before, or think
yeah,
these thoughts. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was definitely, I think getting married was definitely one of the landmines.
yeah,
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. So,
yeah. We'll get into it.
yeah.
So, um, did y'all grow up in like a Christian home? I mean,
Yeah.
how would you describe that? Like,
Well, it was interesting. So, like, both sides of my family are very, I would say, Christian in a sense, but with a lot of brokenness. So, on my dad's side, they were like super religious and Christian and went to church. And my grandfather was actually a minister for a time. He actually ministered at a church like 5 miles from where I live right now that was probably built in the late 1800s. And we had his memorial service there and everything. It's this cool little church. But what was so challenging is that my grandfather was also a very abusive person.
mm,
And I know that my dad experienced abuse at the hands of my grandfather. And that was all mixed in with, you know, religion and church and prayer and all this stuff. It got really messy. My grandmother was abused by my grandfather, so my dad didn't grow up with a very good taste around church or faith. I knew that he wanted to believe in something, but he had his own struggles and challenges. And so that was kind of like my dad's side experience with church. And then my mom's side, they were also highly involved with church. At the time, my grandfather, so my mom's dad, was the choir director at probably the most prominent church in this area back in the 80s, 70s, and 80s. And they actually had a big scandal revolving my grandfather there as well. And it was, like sexual in nature. It was very embarrassing for my family, very hard. He had to step down from his position. And so there was a lot of pain mixed in with her church experience as well. And so what that led to for me was that my mom was maybe still more on the side of like, I want my family to know God. I want us to go to church, but I'm just going to be very cautious. And then with my dad, who never remarried, he really just didn't go to church or want to have anything to do with it. And so
yeah,
I think I did grow up with a sense of who God was, but the idea of like gathering communally and getting highly integrated in a church community was not something I really experienced, I don't think.
yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
there on both sides.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't think it's an uncommon story for some people.
No, no, not at all. No, there's people listening who understand totally.
Yeah.
Well, when I met you, it seemed like your relationship with Jesus is like very close, very intimate. you walk with him, you talk with him. And so how did, and we can kind of weave this into however you felt led to go, but how do you get from that experience growing up to like now where it's like you have a great friend in Jesus and
Yeah.
and you're walking with him, you're listening to him, you're hearing him, like and you're ministering. You were 15 years of ministry or 12 years of ministry, like
Yeah.
so maybe just keep that in mind as something to answer as you. So you're in, walk us through like high school and all that. So kind of you gave us the basis
Yeah.
of that. So what was your under your middle school years and high school years like? And you have a stepbrother
Yeah.
now, you know.
Yeah. Um, well, I think the one of the first memories that I actually have as a human being was at my mom's house. I was probably like five or something. My mom and my brother and I, this was before she got remarried. We were kneeling on the side of our bed, and she asked us if we wanted to accept Jesus into our heart.
Mm,
And we prayed a little prayer, just the three of us. And I'm so grateful that the Lord gave me remembrance of that memory because it's so special. And I guess that I didn't even think about it at the time. I didn't even think about what that meant. It's like, when you're five, you're like, guy wants to live in my heart. Great.
yeah,
I
bring
don't
it,
know what that means. I think I
bring it on.
literally pictured like a little man like walking
Yeah.
into my heart or something because that's the words my mom used. Um, and so that was probably my first memory of having any sort of like idea of who Jesus even was. And then from then, I just grew up doing kid stuff. I didn't really think about church or faith or God. Maybe when I'm laying in bed at night, I'd ask God for all the toys that I wanted or something, just the fun little kid
Absolutely.
prayers. No rhyme or reason to it. And our imagination is just so intertwined with our faith when we're kids. And I think that's how it should be. But at
Yeah.
a certain point, we get away from that. But yeah, so when the remarriage happened, it was challenging. But I think the biggest factor in the formation of my faith as a young person was just the example that my mom set. Um, I talked about how church was kind of a hard thing for us as a family, but I did see my mom walk out a level of faithfulness in the midst of all the challenges she had. Because I mean, before she got remarried, like she got remarried, I was 7, my brother was 9. She parented both of us while working as a realtor, like a full-time job. I don't know how she did that to this day. I mean, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that
Because
was 7 years, right?
yeah,
Like you said, like, I mean, it
s-
was 7 years of just raising you all full time.
yes. And so I watched God provide for us. And I might not have been able to understand that as a kid, like what was really happening. But just the fact that we didn't have to worry about what we are going to eat, like where we are going to live, like we didn't have to move around a bunch. Um, and that was a big faith step for her because she always wanted to be, I mean, she wanted to be a nurse, but really she just wanted to be a full-time mom. And so when she had to get a job to like try to provide for us, I think she was pretty nervous about that. But the Lord absolutely blessed her for her faith and her stepping out and just saying, Lord, I know you're going to provide. And if you guys know real estate, it's not always easy working 100% commission. And so I know there'd be
Oh,
some
yeah.
months where we'd have a lot, some months we wouldn't, but
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
That'd probably be
yeah,
the hardest thing to jump into.
I
I
know.
mean, a full commission based type of deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a huge thing. I remember I'd see her pray. I'd see her just mutter little prayers under her breath when she was stressed. And I just pick up on it as a kid. You're just like, oh, she like believes this. And it's honestly influenced how I want to raise our kids. Like I want them to see us living out our faith, not just like us telling them things
Yeah.
about faith. So that was cool. And then, in high school, I kind of just wasn't interested in my faith. I think middle school and high school, I was interested in what most kids are, which is like you want to be cool, you want to be popular. It's
Mm.
like the most important thing to you is that
Yeah.
people accept you and that they like you, and wrestling with all that and all those emotions. And by the time I was like a junior in high school, I felt like I had a lot of great friends. I felt like we were all cool. We were all just enjoying being young. I was dating a girl who was cool, and
Yeah.
I just wasn't really interested in faith. None of my friends were really believers at the time. And so when my mom's like, well, you want to go to the church's youth group? I'm like, no, not a
No, no,
chance.
no,
Like
thanks.
I'm hanging out with my friends. Like we're going to music festivals. We're like
Yeah.
doing all this stuff. Luckily I never really got into like a lot of drugs and alcohol in high
Mm.
school. And so somehow the Lord spared me that because all my friends were doing that.
Yeah.
I guess I just always had a thought that I wouldn't do it. And I actually had one friend in high school, oddly enough, who's Mormon. And I think the Lord used him in my life, to be honest. I mean, I don't believe his theology by any stretch of the word, but I
Yeah.
think the Lord really used him in my life to just be a good example. And, his family's so loving. And
Yeah.
so that was cool. Um, but if you'd like, I'll share my baptism story because it happened in high school and it's very, very
100%.
funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm dating this girl in high school. We are not doing dating the
Yeah.
Christian way. We're
Yeah.
sleeping together, all this stuff. And we break up it like around springtime of my senior year. And all this while, I had these two teachers at this public high school. God bless them. They're still friends to this day. They were very bold about sharing the gospel with students in a public school. I don't even know how they kept their job for 30 years.
In Portland area. Yeah.
Yeah,
To us,
exactly.
that's like, does that happen? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the wife of this couple, she taught my psychology course. And, mental health has kind of been a struggle throughout my life, but this is when I first experienced it. I think I had my first panic attack when I was like breaking up with this girl. And so I talked to my teacher about it because she's teaching psychology and we're learning about like panic disorder and depression and all
Mm.
this stuff. And I just tell her, I said, Mrs. Rao, I think I'm struggling with this. Like, I think I might have this. And she's like, well, why don't you come over to our house on Thursday for dinner? Because they do these dinners every Thursday.
Wow.
They would just call it, I don't know why they call it Talk Turkey, but we just come and we talk about our lives. There'd
That's
be like
brilliant.
7 or 8 students there every week. And it was there that she said, Grant, I think I know what you need to help you with this challenge you're going through. And I said, what is that? She said, you need to know that Jesus wants a personal and intimate relationship with you. And
Wow.
just told me straight up. And I tell you what, as a 17-year-old, my head did not understand what she meant by that, but like my heart totally did understand. And I think that's how Jesus works. Because like her telling me that, you could have said like George Washington wants to have a personal and intimate relationship with you.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it felt. Because like to me, it's like Jesus is like a historical figure. He's not. I didn't have any context for like interacting with Jesus on a daily
Wow.
basis, but my heart was so curious about that comment because it kind of made sense. And there's no other person throughout history that you could say that about and have it like make sense in your heart.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh.
there's something about Jesus. And so from that point on, I'm like, there is something about Jesus. Like, why do I feel different when people talk about Jesus like this? And so that was really the seed. And then, a few months go by. The breakup was messy. It's like we did one of those high school things where we broke up, but then we went to prom together, and then that was a disaster. You're just trying to figure out how relationships work.
Especially your spring year and senior. So like
Oh
that is bad.
yeah,
That is bad timing.
yeah.
Like that's bad timing
So
for a lot of, yeah.
yeah. Um, so the craziest part of this is like my parents would always ask me on Sundays if I'd like to go to church with them. And probably since I was in 8th grade, I'd always just say like, maybe next week, I'd like shout downstairs and, for 7 years, I just never went. But this Sunday, I just wanted to go to church. Now, my parents had already left. They went to the church they go to, but there was a church right across the street from our house. And I woke up on a Sunday morning. It was 8:50. I thought I remembered that the church started at 9. So I just walk across the street into this church. Now, this church was like a satellite campus of one of these mega churches in Vancouver at the time. And I did not realize this. I don't know how I didn't know this. It was Easter Sunday, and this campus was doing nothing but baptisms. So this building was just baptisms, and they were screencasting it to all the other campuses. So I walk in, and it's just a room filled with pools. And I was just like,
Oh my
what is going
gosh.
on here? And so the ushers assume, rightly, that I'm there to be baptized, because that's why else would you show up to this campus? And so I walk in, they're like, all right, you here to be baptized? We're so excited for you. And I was just like, sign me up. Great,
Oh,
here I am.
dude, that's awesome.
So, I'm in my clothes and everything, and they just go full immersion. I just get into this pool, and there's like the lights and the fog machines and stuff because it's this whole
Yeah.
production.
Yeah.
And so, maybe this, like, I don't know if he's like a lay pastor or something, but he says the doctrinal stuff I say, and then they dunk me. And I literally just walk back across the street soaking wet. And
That's awesome, Grant.
I, I just prayed this really simple prayer. And again, it's God's grace that I remember it, but I just prayed, Jesus, I don't know much about you, but I want to know you more. Can I follow you? And that was it.
Wow.
And then from there on, I truly believe, as we do as the church, that something supernatural happened in that moment of baptism and confession where I received the Holy Spirit. And I really think from that point on, I heard the voice of God much more clearly than I ever had in my life. And um, yeah, so that's kind of where it started.
I love that about the Lord too, that like you would walk into that not really knowing much and all that, but he still would honor that 100%.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
like it's like you don't have to come in a certain knowledge or certain whatever. It's like you showed up and just said yes, and like you don't have it all figured out, but as a kid, you're just like, I'm in.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh,
Dude, my theology was so minimal. Like, I didn't know hardly anything at that point. So,
that's beautiful. Okay. Well,
yeah.
let's get on to like college time period and all that and beyond. But like, first off, what was your, I mean, if you're comfortable saying, like, what was your relationship with your dad like? Were the two households like opposite of each other? Was one kind of like wheels off, one was all rules type of thing, like a typical, or
Yeah.
what was that
Um,
like?
yeah, the two households were very different. It was like my mom's house was a place of light and joy. Um, it was the fun place to be. I mean, my mom is just like, I do think she will be a saint someday, whether the
Yeah.
earth recognizes it or not. Like, heaven will. I mean, she's just amazing, and so she created such a safe atmosphere for us. My stepdad is a pretty stern guy, and we've not really ever had much of a relationship. But I think even despite that, being at my mom's house was such a wonderful experience, and then being at my dad's house was very hard.
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
Mm.
It's weird to say this on a podcast that I know will be on the internet, but
Yeah.
my dad and I are still working through stuff, and part of it is like, I think honesty is not dishonoring. So I'll just say, like, my dad, he struggled with alcoholism his entire
Mm.
life, and he lived that struggle. And so going over there, we experienced a lot of neglect. A lot of times there wouldn't be food in the fridge. Our dog died pretty much of starvation and malnourishment. Like,
Mm.
it was very challenging. And at the time, we just assumed that's how it was. Like, a lot of times we'd show up and he either wouldn't be home or he'd be locked in his room. He'd have, different women coming in and out the door. It's very
Yeah.
challenging. And I love my dad, and he's on his own journey and he's going through it. But that was my experience.
Yeah.
And um that created a lot of
Yeah,
wounds in me for
for
sure.
sure. Yeah, and he sounds like
Um,
he was still wrestling with his own. So yeah,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't take your dishonor and blaming him, but yeah, appreciate you
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah,
Okay,
for sure.
so then you move out, and where do you go, or do you stay around? Like,
Yeah,
and
so I had barely gotten into University of Washington. I was so grateful. I got my acceptance letter like late May or something. I'm like, oh gosh, I hope this happens. But yeah, I went to college that summer, and because I had just become a Christian now, I was like, okay, what do I do now? And what was such a blessing was that one of my best friends who I just met kind of as I was finishing high school, he grew up kind of a cradle Catholic. His parents also struggled with alcoholism. He was coming to know Jesus at the same time as me. And so we were kind of in lockstep as this was happening. We were reading Wild at Heart. We were
oh
like
yeah.
getting super into it. And so we decided to go on a road trip that summer before college. And we drove down to Utah. We rafted the Colorado River. We were
Oh
like,
wow, dude.
staying overnight, in the desert in a tent. I mean, it was just like, we just wanted to live it. And of course,
Yeah.
I think you guys have maybe had John Eldredge on this podcast. Like he's all about adventure and finding God in the adventure and also like, he talked a lot about in that book like how to deal with the wounds from your earthly fathers and I was going through that. And so I really think that book along with Paul Young's The Shack, I mean,
Yeah.
Wild at Heart and The Shack were the two books that I read that really led me into the arms of Jesus. And then from there, I kind of went all out, read a bunch of stuff from C.S. Lewis and kind of getting my theology and my doctrine correct. So yeah, we did this trip and then we went up to college and I got involved in every like church thing I could. I mean, there was college ministries, there was apologetics classes and groups, not through the university, but just,
Yeah. Oh
ministries on
yeah.
campus. Um, Campus Crusade, Navigators. I did all of it. Young Life, volunteering at Young Life
Wow.
camps. I mean, I was just eating it up. It was so fun. I just felt like I was living in a whole new world.
Yeah.
And
Fresh
yeah,
start
going on
too.
mission
Like,
trips. Yeah.
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 Wow. Yeah. So actually, we have had Paul Young on, which is
Oh,
super
cool.
sweet, just recently, and John Eldredge coming soon. So I'll think I'll clear coming in the fall. So we're really
Oh,
pumped.
okay.
That was one of Mike
Yeah.
and I's like. Both those guys were kind of like a dream guest. So yeah, we're excited about that. So
That's
okay, here you
awesome.
are. You're in the middle
Yeah.
of signing up for everything. What did you get your degree in?
Yeah.
And then like, let's keep going. And
Yeah.
where'd you meet your
Yeah.
bride and all that?
Oh, yeah. So I got my degree in psychology and I did like a business minor too. I had no idea, as most psychology majors don't, I had no idea
God,
what I wanted to do with my life.
okay, I got to take a time out and give you a funny story. I was telling my daughter the other day. I feel like the biggest idiot, but I made a comment one time. I was doing I was participating in something at the college here in town or the university here in town. And I was talking to the lady running it, and I was like, it was something like, yeah, I don't know, it's probably like a psychology major, like you can't do anything with that or something. She's like, I'm a psychology major. I was like, oh, I'm so stupid. Sorry. It was a comment similar I was like, what do you can't do anything with a
Yeah.
psychology major, you know? So anyway, so
Dude,
I can
I
relate to
get
that.
it.
I still have a little sting from that. I was like, okay, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah, I remember actually getting that advice at some point in college because I was feeling down. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this degree. And someone's like naming off people who were psych majors, and there's some presidents or something. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll be good. There's some people who succeeded with this degree. Um, so yeah, I mean, I graduated. I thought I was going to go work in business or the finance sector or something. And one of our college ministry pastors asked if I would apply to their college ministry internship, which was such a fun job. I'd seen different ministry interns throughout my time as a student. And so I was like, yeah, I'd love to do that. It's just a year, take a little like gap year and do this. And that was so fun. It was my first experience of ministry. Um, I will say this. It was the first time I realized that ministry can be pretty lonely though.
Mm.
Especially when you're working in college ministry as like a 23-year-old, you kind of establish this like, am I a student with them still, or am I supposed to be like a leader? Am I supposed to be like a spiritual leader? And that I say that to say, because I went into ministry after that, and that can be a real, I guess, trap from the enemy working in ministry is that we separate ourselves from the people we're ministering to. And it took me many, many years to realize it's not actually how Jesus ministered. Like he was incarnate and he came into people's lives and was right in the middle of it. There was no show up quick, minister, and then go back to your, wherever. So,
Mm.
but yeah, I did that. And then after that, that's when I thought I was going to go, okay, now I'm going to go make some money. I'm going to get my life together. And then I had these other mentors who were like, hey, we've seen what you've done with the college ministry, and we'd love for you to consider working with our team. And I remember asking him, I was like, well, what will I
Oh.
be doing? And they were like, oh, we'll figure out what you'll do. And I'm like, okay. Um, how much will I get paid? And they're like, oh, we'll figure out how much you'll get paid. There was just no
M-
answers to anything. And so,
Micah, I see Micah laughing a lot about this. What do you you got anything to say about the loneliness and the pay of ministry? Like,
Well, so
oh,
I mean, I think I was in ministry maybe like, I don't know, 17, 18 years, and I never was
wow.
full time. I was always a worker slash volunteer, even though like sometimes my church hours were 45,
Oh
especially if
my
you're a
goodness.
worship leader and you're running multiple teams and you got practices and you got three services on Sunday and then you got
Yeah.
trainings and all this other stuff. And then, um, and I wasn't really, I mean, I didn't find Jesus till I was in my 30s. I had
Wow.
experiences when I was a kid that kind of turned me off of Jesus.
Mm,
So, of course, you get hit, I get baptized, and I'm like, let's go.
yeah.
Um, but I, I wasn't, maybe I didn't have the right mentors, or maybe I needed more people to be like, yo, you got to pay
Mm,
attention to like your family. Because for
mm,
you,
yeah.
like what you're talking about, to me, the trap, it wasn't necessarily the loneliness, because I was around people
Mm,
all the time, even though I'm actually really an introvert and I'd rather just be
huh.
home. But ministry taught me to not, I got to focus on other people, but it also kind of made me forget that I'm supposed to be the chief of my house. So when you're talking about
Uh,
loneliness, I took it from oh man, I'm not doing enough here, right?
mm,
yeah. Yeah.
Because you can get, especially when you're doing youth and doing worship. I mean, I was doing all that, especially when I moved up to Stephenville to help plant that church. I was helping with youth. I was taking kids to camp. I was doing the worship. I was at
Wow.
Beans and Frank's every other day, just trying to meet with people and adults, college kids. We helped start the 402 on Tarleton's campus, which was a conglomerate college worship service. So I spent a lot of time doing that, and then I mean, like my trap, I think, was not enough time at home or going, hey, when I'm off 2 days, you're not going to
mm,
see me, or you're not going
Huh.
don't call me. I'm not going to pick up.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So
Eh, Not to mention the pay, which always
yeah.
drives me
Well,
crazy,
I
Grant.
didn't.
That drives me crazy about that, like ministers and not
Well,
getting
yeah,
paid
and
for
a
the
lot of it
work.
is like, go ahead and fundraise. Go ahead and fundraise your
Mhm.
salary. And it's never enough, especially when you got like a family of four. Um, it's just ministry is real hard.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming at a church plant. Now, there's other benefits and there's other blessings and all this other stuff. I've got so many God bucks. I'm going to be living
Yeah.
large,
Yeah.
but at the same time, um, I was just going off with you feeling.
Yeah, no.
That's
So
what I was
yeah,
Yeah.
laughing about because the
we're
salary and the way that you feel
I hear
lonely.
ya.
Yeah,
so I guess it's the same in the Northwest, Micah, as it is in Texas. All right, keep going.
Yeah.
So we're with you 100%.
Oh,
So
yeah.
did you
Well, and
sign up for the next step? I mean, the people who are like, "Come on, we'll figure it out." You said,
I
"Let's go."
did. I did. And, I was 23, 24 at the time. And, Mike, it's so funny. I'm always a little wary when I see a part-time ministry role because I don't think that actually exists. You're going to be working
no, that's a
more than full
farce.
time. Yeah, there's no such thing as part-time ministry. Um, but yeah, so I did it and yeah, fundraised my whole salary. And of course, all my peers are 23. So I'm like, hey, do you want to give? And they're like, yeah, here's $10 a month, and I'm like, oh boy, I'm gonna need like 5,000 people to be able to reach what I need to live on. And so it was hard. But again, when you're single and you're a guy, it's like you can eat ramen, you can figure it out, you can split a room with one of your buddies and pay $300 a month for rent or whatever. Of course, this was back in 2014 when that was a real thing. Um, so yeah, it was a great ministry. We were focused on Jesus-centered leadership, and so teaching leadership principles based on the teachings of Jesus and the Gospels. We focused a lot on the Gospels and Jesus himself, and sometimes we get in the Old Testament and the epistles and things like that. But what I received from that was just so much mentorship. I mean, I got to meet so many amazing people, and what our events focused on was we really tried to not have professional, we'd say professional Christians speaking. We'd like to
Yeah.
have business people. We'd like to have community leaders, political leaders share their story about how Jesus influences their work and their leadership. And so a lot of my mentors were, CEOs of companies or state legislators or congresspeople, former congresspeople. And that just blew my mind. I remember the first time I went to one of these events and it's kind of like any other event or retreat. You get into small groups, maybe you have a small group facilitator. And my small group facilitator was just so interested in my life. And, I'm a 23-year-old, I haven't done anything. And so I start asking the mentor about his life, and he starts telling his story, and I find out, oh, you were one of the presidents of Nordstrom for most of your life. Like
Oh, wow.
that's but
Yeah.
but what blew my mind about that was like I didn't expect people like that to be interested in me. Like that
Wow.
didn't make any sense to me. Like you have your whole life, you could just retire and be fine with everything. Why are you talking to someone like me? And it was Jesus. That's the reason, because we had this thing in common that was a relationship with a person who was the greatest leader who ever lived and is still alive today. Uh, so it was a very special ministry. I did that for 10 years
Wow.
in different capacities. I mean, I was, working with young people for a while. I was doing event coordination for a while, which I did not like. Not a big admin person, I learned. Um, and relational people usually aren't, but typically Jesus has us do some admin in our life.
You
Um,
gotta go through your wilderness.
yeah, you got to know what it's like for other people to who work on that stuff for sure. Um, and then I did a lot of international work as I got kind of later into my 20s, doing some traveling and international events, which was also a great learning experience. So, and it's kind of in that area that I met my wife, and um, that was around like 2017, 2018. And yeah, so that was kind of my ministry career, so to speak. I mean, I don't really like calling it that, but um, I'd say what I really took from that time in ministry is that, everything we do is ministry. And sometimes we have the privilege of getting like paid to do that kind of thing full time, but everyone's in full time ministry, right? I think maybe we'd all agree with that. If you could be laying bricks all day and you're in full time ministry because you're working under the Lord. But I did find it a privilege to get to do that type of work for so long. Um, and the Lord did provide financially, not to the extent that maybe I wanted in my flesh, but he always gives us what we need. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to ask you about that. Do you recall, uh, do you have, well, I should say, back from your days, you probably do because you did it for 10 years. What were some of the biggest leadership things you learned that Jesus did? Like, what was the Jesus leadership things? I'm just curious. Do you remember, like,
Oh
as a
yeah.
leader, this was some of Jesus's big deals? I'd love to have that on here, just to selfishly learn. Like,
Oh
what were some of
yeah.
the leadership things that Jesus looked like? I mean, I'd love for you to take a tangent for a minute and,
Yeah,
and go there.
absolutely. So our approach to teaching this, and just my personal approach, is that you can look at it two ways. You can look at Jesus's life and try to observe how he led and then try to lead like him. or you can just try to follow him.
Oh,
I don't think either's wrong. I know there's a lot of books and stuff about how to lead like Jesus, and I actually think those are great books. I found it easier and more simple to just be like, Jesus, how do I follow you really, really well? And trust that if I'm following you, then I'll be leading others. Um, and so, in that sense, we looked at what did Jesus say was the most important thing for us to focus on? Because if we focus on that, then we will be great leaders. And so that starts with what I believe Jesus said was our purpose in life, which is the first and greatest commandment to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That if I wake up every morning and just have that, like, plastered on my wall and just be like, you need to do this today, non negotiable. I don't care what else is going on in your day. You need to love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, strength, essentially everything you have. And we could go through each of those and break them down and what that really means. And then you need to love your neighbor as yourself. And of course, Jesus in the Gospels qualifies that when he's asked by someone, who is my neighbor? And he responds with the Good Samaritan story, which is essentially the story of someone choosing to help their enemy in a time of need. So it could be your enemy that's your neighbor. It doesn't really matter. It's the person who's right next to you. And so in your day, if you choose to love God in everything you do and to love the person right next to you, you are probably already leading like Jesus just by choosing to do that.
yeah. I'm
So,
just thinking of the lies that I've believed in the past on like loving people or trying to love people. Like it doesn't count because it's not like an outcome production. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
yeah.
feeling this, and like that's like actually that's really good
Oh,
news. It's really good news, but like that's really hard because that's a it's a moving target. Like just
yeah.
loving people. But the fact that that really counts and that's following Jesus, that's pretty sweet to me. Like that's a
Yeah,
big, big deal.
it is. And we always said, Jesus would have made a terrible megachurch pastor because he only had 12 guys who were really following him and they all left at the end, right? They all quit. Um, and then when he had the chance to preach his like biggest sermon ever in John chapter 6, he talks about people needing to eat his flesh and drink his blood, and everybody leaves. It's like, dude, you are doing this wrong, Jesus. Um,
Oh,
that's just a
yes,
joke. It's not a knock on mega churches. I'm just
100%.
saying that
I
like
know.
sometimes we get in the metrics of everything, and if we actually try to live the way Jesus lived, we should maybe find more persecution in our life rather than the accumulation of resources and people and things like that.
Yeah. Um,
So,
yeah, that's good, Grant. Hey, so how do you love God with your mind? Take us on a
oh,
little like take us just
yeah.
on that little piece of it and then we'll get back into
Well, I think there's a lot of good answers to that question, but I'll just share what he's teaching me right now about this. Um, and hopefully this makes sense to you guys. So most of my life, I would have had what I would call a spontaneous and conversational prayer life, which was beautiful. I wouldn't get very religious about my prayers. I would just kind of talk to the Lord throughout the day. I would trust that if there's something he wanted to tell me, he would bring it up. And there's some really beautiful stories around that in my life. The challenges with that kind of prayer life is that when your life gets really hard and maybe there's more overwhelm and anxiety, I was very unlikely to just go to the Lord in prayer because I hadn't developed what I would now call a devotional prayer life, which
Mhm.
is choosing to pray to God when I don't feel like it. Now, Christians throughout the centuries have been committed to a devotional prayer life. Maybe you've heard of the Jesus prayer that the Orthodox pray maybe 100 times a day, which is just, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner.
Mhm.
And we might see that as religious and repetitive. And you do have to be careful with that because Jesus talked about not praying to be seen by others and thinking God will hear you because you pray something a million times. But these prayers throughout history, the rosary, whatever, I think really have a place in our spirituality because it's saying that I'm going to choose to use my words and my thoughts to meditate on Jesus just because I want to be more devoted to him. So I never had that. Maybe the closest thing to that I had was making sure I like read my Bible every day. But even that, my reformed theology was like, no, 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 that's works. You don't need to do that. And so I was cutting
Yeah.
out all these works from my life that really, um, to answer your question, I was not loving the Lord with my mind.
Mm.
And so now I've started to pray the rosary every day, which again, Catholic Protestant theology aside, I'm still a Protestant, but I enjoy it because it's a reflection on the life of Jesus. And to me, that has sharpened my mind. And it's like I'll get to the end of the day, and I know that this prayer takes me about 25 to 30 minutes, and I'm like, oh, I just want to go to bed.
Oh yeah.
But but Lord, no, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to reflect on the mysteries of your life, and I'm going to choose to love you with my mind. And I've been someone who's experienced a lot of anxiety in my life. I have
Mm.
clinical forms of anxiety. So loving the Lord with my mind is very important. And, I know things like mindfulness and different forms of meditation have become very popular in the secular world. All those come from Christian spirituality. I know that there's Eastern forms of it as well, but when you look at the church fathers, when you look at the contemplatives throughout the church, that's what they were practicing, and they were sharpening their mind and loving the
Mm.
Lord with their mind. So that's kind of how I'd answer that
That's
right now.
that's so sweet. Yeah, I've just got done reading Contemplative Prayer by Father Thomas Keating.
Oh
And I don't know
yeah.
if you've ever listened to him much. I mean, I think he's passed on now, but it's amazing, and just how these early church fathers, like especially the mystic guys, I think it's incredible how they prayed, which
Oh,
is like it wasn't even like with words half the time. I mean, it's nothing I've ever grown up with. It's wild it's hard though. It's
it
hard
is
for somebody
hard.
like me to like just sit there with the Lord, you know,
Yeah.
praying but not praying like that. Anyway, so that's cool. Thanks for answering that.
Yeah,
I love
totally.
that. Um, so tell us about your bride when you met, and then like
Yeah.
I want to get into some of the challenges. Maybe you said, uh, I mean,
Yeah,
it been a little bit tough, tough,
totally.
maybe a tough marriage start. I don't know. Tell us a little bit about.
Yeah. Yeah. So my wife is amazing. Her name's Christy. We some mentors introduced us to each other, and we just I would say I was most attracted to who she was as a person. Obviously, physical features and everything were there too,
Yeah.
but I'd never met anyone that I was like, this person, I think, would actually be willing to partner with me on my crazy ministry life where we trust God for our finances and we just kind of go where the Spirit leads us. Like, I frankly had not met many people who'd be down for that because it's kind of like, and I understand it. It's like you do want a husband who's got like a stable job and house and all these things, and I didn't have that. Um, but my wife, I could just tell she had that same mentality of like, I'm just going to go where the Spirit leads. The first verse I ever memorized, and this was thanks to the Navigators Ministry, was Proverbs 31:30, which says, "Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised." And
Mhm.
I met that woman. I was just like, wow. Well, I got it all because she does have charm and she does have beauty, but
Yeah.
she definitely has the fear of the Lord.
That's awesome, man.
And I I just saw that, and thankfully she was interested in me. I didn't think she was at first. I don't know if she thought she was at first, but in the end, she was like, "Okay, I'm in." And so we
Yeah.
got married, and it's a beautiful wedding. We got married right before COVID. Praise God. There
Yeah.
was a lot of people at our wedding, and I'm glad they were all able to come before the terrible pandemic started.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, the start of our marriage was hard. And what I'll say is this. We were talking about the landmines earlier.
Mhm.
I definitely stepped on a landmine when I got married. And all the learned behaviors I gained from my dad, um, they all came up and I felt trapped. I just felt
Mhm.
trapped in my marriage. Oh, I didn't know this would be like this. My wife's an
Mhm.
amazing woman. So I was confused. I was kind of like, why am I not happy? Why am I not?
Why am I feeling this way? Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of put me in a hard position. And this is uh, one of the things I'm working through when it comes to life and vocational ministry is I felt like I didn't have an opportunity to share with anybody what I was feeling. I had so much shame around it. Um, I should be happy in this marriage. I should be serving my wife well. I knew I wasn't, and I don't. I don't think I felt like I had anyone I could talk to because
Mm,
I felt like my job security would be on the line if anybody knew that I was really this depressed or that I was
yeah.
really struggling this much. And I do think that's a real problem in the way that we've set up church and ministry life.
Mm,
We've seen a lot of scandals come out from pastors and ministry leaders. And obviously, there's full responsibility on the person that makes the choice to do something like that. But I also have to ask the question, like, what should they have done when they recognized this was an issue?
mm.
And would there have been an avenue for them to pursue healing
Yeah,
while not losing their job and their vocation, their identity? And
that's a
maybe
real thing.
it's a
It's
real
a real
thing.
thing.
And maybe there's not. Maybe that's just the price of it. Maybe it's like, we put people in too young and they haven't worked through this stuff. And so we like the giftedness and the charisma that they bring in their 20s and 30s, but then they hit this stuff and they just have to hide it because now they've already reached the top.
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother conversation. I think it's a conversation worth having when it comes to doing ministry well. Um, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
not
so
safe to come in and say if you're the head pastor of a big church and everybody's looking at you, they don't give you the ability to go like, I'm super depressed, I'm anxious, I'm having all these thoughts and whatever. I mean, they're just like, you need to, you're gonna
yeah,
have to go. That's the possibility. Yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yeah, that's a
possibility. I
shame.
mean, yeah, it could be like an administrative leave or something like that, but then people start to wonder. And I am, you should have people who are fit to lead in the position, but that doesn't mean we should think that we need to be perfect all the time. And
Yeah.
so I'll leave that to the
Yeah,
pastors and
100%.
stuff to
Yeah.
figure out
Yeah.
how to work with that. But that's just what I experienced. And so I tried to go to counseling. We tried to go to marriage counseling. A lot of stuff wasn't working. Right around this time, I started to experience some major health problems too, which I think were probably related to the stress I was
Mhm.
experiencing and, my trauma coming up from my childhood and stuff. And it was COVID. So we were living together. We were working in the same house, getting in arguments. We were spending 24/7 together. So I always joke that we had like 7 years worth of arguments in that first year of marriage because we just spent so
Oh,
much time together. But you know, um, we continued working in ministry together. I went actually back to graduate school in 2021 for a degree in public policy of all things. I felt like that was just directly from Jesus. I just felt like
mm.
he said, go to this program. And I asked him for five confirmations because I was like,
Yeah.
this better
Give
be
me a
you.
couple
This
extra.
is like $70,000 taken out in
Yeah.
loans and not even something I'm particularly interested in at the moment. But he gave me five confirmations, and I went. And after I graduated in 2023, my wife and I decided we should take a sabbatical. Um, I think a little bit of us knew that we weren't in a healthy place in our marriage yet, and so a sabbatical would be good for that. But we also just needed rest and time to discern, like, okay, I have this degree in public policy. We've been serving in ministry. A lot of that ministry is like politically adjacent, but we wouldn't get into policy matters. We were more just like political chaplains, like
Mm.
just talking to people about their faith, Democrats and Republicans. So, our board approved a 4 month sabbatical, and that's when we came down to the Portland area from Seattle, where I grew up. And that's when what I will call the 3 years from hell, that's where it started. Um, So when we got down here, the health problems that I had been experiencing a little bit just really came full force, fully to the front. And what those were very similar to people who experienced long COVID. So it was like daily dizzy spells, heart arrhythmia stuff. I was
Yeah.
having breathing problems. I was having a lot of neurological issues. So, when I'd be talking to people in conversation like this, I would it sounds so weird, but it's like my face would kind of go numb. I would kind of like, it's like my brain would short circuit. It was really hard to have focused conversations or even do like
Mm.
work on the computer. And it was really challenging. I like couldn't get out of bed most days. Some days I'd
Oh
feel like I
man.
was about to faint. And it hits so strongly. And so I'm dealing with this. I'm going to like every specialist to try to figure it out. It's like, do I have Lyme disease? Do I have
Yeah.
what causes this? And it
They
was
couldn't
like
find They couldn't
Well,
find. Yeah,
every
everybody
specialist
has their
was
own
like,
opinion.
yeah, they're like, you definitely have something wrong with you. We just don't know what it is. And that's the worst answer to get, you know? And
Yeah.
I know they were trying. It's like, but the way our system's kind of set up, nobody really sees it holistically. It's like I was just getting bounced back and forth to different specialists. And finally, I think now that maybe even like a year later, we discovered that the most likely cause is that I'd been on an anti-anxiety medication for like a decade.
Mm,
One that they hardly even prescribe anymore because it's so hard to get off of. And
mm.
I had slowly tapered off of it because it had some side effects I didn't like. And what they pretty much said was like, oh yeah, your brain is like recovering from not having that substance in your system anymore. And so it was essentially a prolonged withdrawal. And
Wow.
so my nervous system was just totally off kilter. I got like POTS, if you've ever heard of that. It's like a tachycardia syndrome where like makes it really hard to exercise without having heart arrhythmias and dizziness and things
Ah,
like that. So I kind of developed a temporary form of that due to getting off this medication, which thankfully resolved after about 18 months. I was finally able to exercise again. And I was like in tears when I actually like was able
yeah.
to run and not have a heart arrhythmia. I was like
Oh man.
weeping. So, but yeah, so that lasted for like a year and a half. But 2 months into it, we started going back to marriage counseling, and it was gnarly because a lot of the feelings that I had deep down that I'd never really expressed to my wife came out. You know, these feelings of being trapped,
Mm,
regretting getting married, like not because of anything that I disliked about her, but because I had all these emotions that came up and I didn't know where they came from. And the only thing I could tie it to was I got married. And
yeah.
that was very, very painful for her, obviously. And we had that marriage counseling session, and I kid you not, a month later, we get a call from the doctor's office. My wife had gone in for some routine screening, and they found a tumor in her breast, and it was cancerous. And
Oh,
I can barely walk. Our marriage is like, foundation's completely blown up. We're gonna have to rebuild everything. And now my wife has cancer. And stage one, thankfully, we caught it early, which was the Holy Spirit miraculous that we even went in to look because they didn't even want to give her a
mm,
mammogram. She was too young, but she pushed
yeah.
for it and they found this cancer. And so, dude, it was so rough. I mean,
Oh,
obviously, family and friends were like so concerned and very encouraging what we were going through. A family member gifted us with like a little stay at a cabin up in the San Juan Islands, and this is a memory that I share because it was probably the worst day of my life. We were staying in this cabin. We go out to eat, and we're just like, we don't even know what to talk about. We were just planning to sit there and like eat in silence because it's like, there were so many questions. God, why is this happening? What is going on? I've just spent 15 years serving you, and now like,
yeah.
what is all this?
And
And
y'all were still in the sabbatical stage or not at that point of the
yeah,
ministry. You're still involved in the ministry, right?
so that's a good question. So what happened was like we had gotten to what was supposed to be like the last day of our sabbatical, and the diagnosis had come like a week before
Oh,
that.
okay.
So
Okay.
so we had to pretty much, yeah, we had to tell our board like, hey, we can't come back. And they're like, we understand, but like we essentially had to transition off the ministry team. Um, they let us keep our account open so people could donate financially to help us in this time. But yeah, I mean, we had no job. My
Okay.
wife had cancer. I was sick.
So
Our
there you
marriage
are
was
at
on the
the,
rocks.
okay, sorry. I
Yeah.
just wanted to get that. So you're back
Yeah.
at the
No, it's
island.
good.
Worst day.
Yeah, we're staying there and we go out to eat and order some pizzas or something. And as soon as I take the first bite, like I get hit with this dizzy spell and I'm like, we need to go. And so like I'm literally stumbling out of this restaurant and she's like holding me up. Like my wife who has cancer is like holding me up so I don't fall down. And we get back to our little cabin and I just as soon as we get in the door, I just like fall on my knees and I'm just like bawling. I'm weeping. And I feel terrible for weeping because I should be taking care of my wife, you know? And I mean, I'm crying out to the Lord, like, where are you?
Wow.
And who are you? Like, do you even love me? I mean, it was a very dark time for me. Um, and for my wife as well, though I think she was a lot stronger in that period than I was.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so dude, it yeah, it sucked. And
Well, what was the answer? Like, what'd you hear? What happened? Like, I mean,
so
oh,
I'll be honest with you. I'll just be totally honest with you. I would cry out to God and there was no answer.
yeah.
And it definitely felt like a my God, why hast thou forsaken me?
I was about to
It's
say,
like,
sounds like David in the Psalms. I mean, flip
yeah.
over the next one. Like, you might
I
as well just
read
let me
this. I
go
mean, I read
down.
the Psalms more than anything else in that season because it was the only thing. I read Job a lot
Oh,
because at
crap.
least I was like, so at least I was like, well, at least I didn't lose my family. This guy lost
Yeah.
everything, and so
Oh,
um,
if you're looking for Job for encouragement too. Oh
yeah,
man.
it was so hard because it lasted for. I mean, we did treatment after that. She had surgery and then radiation for 4 or 6 weeks or something like that. And honestly, one of the worst memories about the radiation is we would drive by this billboard as we go to the radiation clinic, and it was like you the Powerball billboard or something, and that Powerball got up to like $1 billion. We drive by it every day, and we're broke. We don't have a job.
Yeah.
We don't have money. We're living with like my aunt to make ends meet at this point. My wife's going to radiation therapy, and I would just be like, let's just buy one ticket. Like, let's just like
Yeah.
pull off the side of the road. Let's just get like one ticket. Maybe the Lord wants to provide for us this way. And then my
Wow.
wife would be like, no, we're not buying lottery tickets. Like, this is ridiculous. Oh my gosh, dude. A week later, the winner of the $1 billion Powerball was 3 miles from that sign in Portland, Oregon. And I just felt
I
like it
knew I
was,
should have
yeah,
tickets.
it was just like, I felt like Satan was just like laughing at me, just like toying with me. Cause like I was so desperate for some kind of stability. And I was wrestling with like my identity. Like I wasn't in ministry anymore. And I was applying to jobs and I could even, I don't even think I could hardly work because of like the condition I had. But all these applications were coming back, no interviews, even for like really entry level like government jobs. Now that I had this policy degree, and if you remember anything about 2024, they cut a lot of federal positions, and so a lot of the things I applied for just came back, and was just like, oh. Um, so yeah, that year was really terrible, but there were some bright moments as well. Some friends gifted us with a stay on Maui, and we actually got to stay on Maui for like 3 months. And so we went out there and just spent time with really good friends. We have a great community out there, and did some healing. But I would say that the one thing that I did hear the Lord say repeatedly over that year was a very unique scripture that I hadn't spent much time studying or anything. And it comes from the Gospels when Jesus tells Peter that he's going to deny him. And then he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith would not fail.
Mm,
And when you have returned, strengthen your brothers. And that verse just came up over and over and over again. And there were times where it was all I was hanging on, was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but I know Jesus has prayed for me and his prayers are always answered. And
wow.
it gave me a little bit of comfort. The discomforting part of it is like I think Satan's trying to like destroy me right now.
Mm,
And I don't know how that works with like God and Satan, but there's really interesting parts in scripture where it seems like God grants Satan
mm,
jurisdiction over our lives in a certain realm or freedom to cause havoc and ruin. I don't know why God does that, but it
yeah.
happens in Job. It happens in this passage with Peter. But my only way I can understand that is that God knows we're going to win,
Mm,
and He would never allow the devil into our lives if he didn't think he could use the devil as a way to teach us and train us our authority over him. And I think that's what
wow.
God was doing. But in the moment, it feels like he's just releasing the dogs on us. It's just like,
Yeah.
God, what is
Yeah.
going on? But what he's
Were you
doing is yeah, trying to show us that we can have
were
authority over
you
the enemy. So,
were you catching like grief from like family too at the time, or like what are y'all doing? Just go, whatever. Like, all this
Oh,
kind of
dude.
unsolicited advice that'll just drive you nuts. Like,
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, if you ever are dealing with cancer, I'm not sure if you guys have had that in your
mm,
story. There's so much advice people give you, and it's honestly it's out of control. It's
yeah,
like it parenting advice, but like on steroids. It's like
yeah,
everyone's like, "Oh, my aunt took
yeah,
this supplement. Oh, you got to do this.
yeah,
Don't do radiation. Don't do
yeah,
chemo. No, you have to do chemo." Like, people are just like, and I know they're trying to help you, but it's like so overwhelming and also like not very respectful of what the Lord might be leading us to do in this situation.
yeah,
Because I'm sure everybody's going to have a different story with that. So
yeah,
that was overwhelming. And especially with like post radiation, they want to put you on hormone blockers, which most people do, but we hadn't started a family yet. So, once you're on those, they kick your body into menopause and you can't get pregnant for like 5 years. And my wife was already 36 at the time. So we were like, yeah, I don't know. We'll pray about it. My wife had a really strong conviction and had actually had a dream. This is crazy. She had a dream of Satan whispering in her ear saying, "You will go into early menopause." And she had this dream before the cancer diagnosis. So
oh,
as
wow.
soon as they mentioned hormone blockers, she was just like, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. And that ended up being a blessing because we got less than a year later, we got pregnant with our first child.
Yeah.
And so there was so much faith going into this and just like the Lord walking us through um, inch by inch this story. But yeah, I was very ashamed during this season without having a job and not having, feeling like I was this ministry leader for so long. And now I'm like begging for
Yeah,
money. I mean, it
yeah,
was very embarrassing for me. I definitely learned the value of being poor in spirit, which I think is something that God rewards when we choose to be poor in spirit, which is like, it's like Mary and Joseph being told, "Hey, by an angel, you're going to birth the savior of the world. And by the way, there's no hotel that's available for you to give birth in. Like you're gonna have to give birth with animals. Like, what do you
mm,
think they were thinking? Like, God, wait, what? You
yeah,
come in here and tell us you tell Mary, I'm gonna be blessed among all generations forever and ever, but I don't get like a hospital to birth a baby in. I mean, it's just
he's messing paradigms up all the time. I mean,
he is, yeah.
golly.
So I was feeling some of that. It's like, God, you've told me all these wonderful things about what you're going to do in my life. Why is this not lining up? Um, so yeah, it was definitely tough, very hard.
How,
Um,
where you at? Where are both of you at? I mean, how's y'all's health?
yeah. So,
Yeah.
we got back from Maui. My stuff had pretty much cleared up after about 18 months. So I was starting to feel pretty good, which is great. All of Christie's scans had been clear, so that's good. They can never really call you like cancer free or in remission unless it's been a certain amount of years. But the treatment's done, and we don't see any sign of cancer, so that's great. Um, Last September, we had our first baby, Liberty Joy Gustafson.
That's
She's
beautiful.
yeah. I mean, we just had to name her Liberty because of the freedom we feel like God had been leading us into, even though it was such a hard time. Even when Christy was pregnant, like it was still hard, but we kind of named her that, speaking it into existence that we would be free and that she would experience freedom, the baby. And so yeah, I think now, wow, dude, we've had so much breakthrough. I mean, I've gotten a lot of healing from the wounds that made our marriage so difficult. And I didn't realize it, but like I was carrying a lot of generational crap. And so we did a time of prayer with some really trusted intercessor friends who I'd never shared this with a lot of people, this
Yeah.
shameful part of me. And I shared it with them. And one of them's like, this is going to be gone today. Like, we're going to deal with this right now. And Josh, I know you and I have talked a little bit about like
Yeah.
prayers in the courtroom and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, this was my first experience with courtroom prayers. And they just like, you know, sat me in the witness stand or
Yeah.
whatever I was sitting in. And they're just like, there's these accusations are being leveled against you that have been leveled against your dad and his dad, and there's generations of
Wow.
divorce in my
Yeah.
family, and they're trying to claim that they have a claim to you too and your marriage
Yeah.
too, and that your marriage is going to end and all this stuff. And we just like called out those lies and we pleaded the blood of Jesus over
Yeah.
everything, and we said nope, not today. And honestly, since that prayer time, it's been like so much better. Like it's not like it was 100% gone immediately,
Yeah.
but it shifted the perspective so that now I can see like, oh, this is the enemy leveling an
Mhm.
accusation against me. This isn't actually what I feel in my heart of hearts towards my wife or towards my marriage. And as
Yeah.
soon as I made that differentiation, it's
Wow.
like my entire prayer life came into focus around that, and it was all ordered correctly, and I could see exactly what was going on in the spiritual realm. So
Yeah.
that
I
was
mean,
amazing.
for those who've never had much experience, but I didn't, but uh Grant actually got me on this book called Courts of Heaven by Robert Henderson that was like so eye-opening too. And me praying through some stuff, I'm just like, oh man. I mean, it's very like legal coming from a lawyer. Like it's very but it also makes a lot of sense. A whole lot of sense. And things change. You're just like, oh, like they're claiming these rights. Maybe you didn't even
Yeah.
originate, but once you like Jesus broke, you know, covered and broke the rights, but it's like bringing them up and letting them be dealt with. Super fascinating. It's not nothing to overlook, especially with
Yeah.
ongoing stuff. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
It's
that's a
surprising. Yeah.
I
I,
gotta,
I didn't I wouldn't have thought that like it would be so legal how the spiritual
yeah,
realm works. But
yeah.
that's how it
Micah,
works.
well, I got a question.
Yeah.
Maybe, uh, I mean, I know we're at the towards the end of this,
mm,
but going through so much of this and going through kind of what you felt at the bottom. I mean, I hit bottom a couple times before I even found Jesus. And then
Mm.
even with Jesus, I've been in some pits because for those that don't know who Jesus is, uh, you still have issues even if you're best friends with Jesus. It's
Yeah.
a continual thing to some extent. You just get better at handling it, or better at asking for help, or better, or or using His power to overcome all this stuff.
mm,
Do
Yeah.
you think that you're because of all of these things that you've gone through that your ability to minister to people is better? I mean, and
Mm.
here's my point is because I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of people, and I'm generalizing, but maybe have never been in a pit. So
Yeah.
they're trying to they're trying to mentor, or they're trying to, press up somebody that's been through one, two, three, four, seven. You never know. You don't know their
Yeah.
story real well, and they have no context of really how to help them because felt that they've never felt that. So now that you've
Yeah.
gone through that, and the things that you are doing now, do you think some of that adversity has helped you kind of, I don't want to say walk the walk and speak the talk, but that's kind of essentially what it is
Mhm.
like you kind of know exactly where some of these people have been.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Thank you, Micah. I do in some ways, but maybe not in the ways that I thought. Like, so I'll also say this. I only got into like three of the six things that happened that were so terrible. I mean, we also just briefly my mother-in-law struggles with schizophrenia. We had to confront a lot of that in this time. My dad had an alcoholic crisis, and we had to confront him with an intervention and fly down there and try to get him into treatment. We also had a miscarriage, which was very, very painful for us before we got pregnant with our first
wow.
baby, which, there's joy there. But I think to answer your question, walking through those specific experiences does give you a level of authority when it comes to offering comfort to people. Like there's just a reality. Like if we had never had a miscarriage, it would be hard to minister to people who had, because there is a level of grief that I didn't know I could experience with a baby I'd never met. But I wept for days over that. And I get that everyone's experience is different. Some people experience miscarriages and they don't have that level of grief. So, it's but or having a parent who's struggling with addiction, like there's things that maybe you can't even relate to. So I do think that's really helped me minister to people better. But I think what's also helped me minister to people better is just having more of a brokenness in spirit. I
Mm,
think there's something about having hit rock bottom, whatever that means, it's different for all of us maybe, that opens your heart to more of a humility. And I think the more humility we have, the better we can minister. Um, I don't know if you guys have ever read Henry Nouwen or any of his books. He's a famous, I don't know what he was, a priest
I
or a
think it's a
professor or
priest, or,
something, a
yeah, or
priest.
both.
And he taught at like either Notre Dame or somewhere really fancy. And then he felt like the Lord calling him to go serve at this place that ministered to handicapped people. And he did that for most of the rest of his life. And a lot of his best writings are about the process that God took him through to learn how loved he was, but to also create him a humility to just minister to the least of these. And I think most Christians would look at Henry now and it's just like a profound writer, but also just his spirit really captured the spirit of Jesus. And I think that came through a choice to choose humility. Now, I didn't choose it. I'll just say this happened to me. But the outcome was I think I do have more humility, not in the sense of like, oh, I'm going to be humble. I'm not going to choose to do great things because I don't think that's really what humility is because God intends to use us for great things. It's more about choosing to suffer with Christ. I
Mm,
think that's really what humility is. Like Jesus, my theology is changing on this, brothers. Like I used to think
mm,
Jesus suffered so that we don't have to.
mm,
I used to think Jesus carried his cross so that we could, you know,
mm,
carry wealth and influence and all this stuff.
mm,
I don't think that's the Christian perspective. I don't think it ever has been. I think the Christian perspective for hundreds of years is that Christ suffered so that we can suffer with him, so that we can resurrect with him. So that part of our life is suffering. And I really admire those who choose it willingly, the same way Christ did. Because he could have called down legions of angels to stop all of this, but
mm,
he chose to suffer
mm,
so that we could have eternal life. And so, where all this shifted for me is when I stopped seeing it as Jesus, would you come down into my suffering and comfort me? And started seeing it as like, Jesus, may I join you in your suffering as I suffer. And I think that's how the early apostles and the martyrs thought of it was like, I want to suffer with Jesus.
mm,
It's not just about him coming down to suffer with me. It's also about me choosing to have a fellowship with his sufferings.
mm,
And so, in doing, attaining to the resurrection from the dead, the power of his resurrection, which
mm.
St. Paul talks about in Philippians chapter 3. So, it's a big mystery, but I think that's really what empowers us to minister well is when we have that mindset. I don't think you have to go through hard things to minister better. I think you can actually maybe choose like Henry Nouwen did. He just chose. I'm just going to choose to live my life with the least of these and give up all this stuff, all this fame and notoriety and
Mm,
privilege. Um, and you can look at anyone, Saint Francis of Assisi, born
mm.
into wealth, and there's that famous depiction of him naked, standing before the church and saying, "Have all of it. I'm just going to go
Wow.
live poor with these people." And of course, his impact on the world and Christendom is so great. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you too. I just thought, I mean, that whole kind of, well, I think what Michael was saying too, well, blessed are the poor in spirit. I think there is something about um, being used when you're in that condition
Yeah,
is way more
yeah,
powerful or real or something. And usually that comes alongside with suffering. It feels like a lot of times, or choice, but sometimes it's
yeah,
hard to choose that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I would
So,
not have chosen it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's beautiful, Grant.
yeah. Thank
Um,
you guys.
as an encouragement, as we kind of land, um, how would you encourage somebody right now who may be in the middle of it, or maybe have been through some of the past, like some of the wounds are getting revealed, or generational whatever, or you're just in the middle of health something, or
Yeah,
you're waiting on provision, or your
yeah,
marriage is sucky right now, or something's happening. Like, what would you say? Like, what encouragement would you have for somebody?
yeah.
What comes to mind?
My encouragement is that Jesus is with you. Choose to be with him and reflect on his passion. Reflect on, like, just picture yourself carrying your cross. It's heavy. You've been beaten, you've been whipped, you're bleeding, and just carry that cross next to Jesus, carrying his, because he's been there and he wants to walk this road of suffering with you. And it's not going to last forever,
Mm.
but walk it well. That would be my encouragement. Um, I wish I could go back and tell myself that. Just say, Grant, I know this is hard. It will be over at some point. Do this well. Like, walk this road of suffering well with Jesus as your model, and love well in the midst of it. Be gracious with yourself and others in the midst of it. Endure, persevere, and attain to the power of the resurrection. That would be my
Wow.
encouragement.
Wow, Grant. Man, thank you. So somebody wants to connect with you because you are also have, I don't know if you called a call, I'm assuming it is, to do some writing. And I've read a
Yeah.
little bit of what you've written, which is some stuff which is just brilliant. So keep on.
Oh,
So you may need to like take some of this and make it another
yeah.
project you're working on. But what if somebody listening to this wants to just connect with you, to hear from you?
Yeah.
Are you cool with like a good email or something? How do you want to get somebody
Sure.
to you?
Yeah. Um, yeah, my email is kind of a mouthful because it includes my last name, which is a mouthful, but it's GHGUSTAFSON at gmail.com. GH Gustafson. Yeah,
Okay.
just send me
Yeah.
an email. Pretty casual. I don't
Yeah.
have any secretaries or anything to read
Yeah.
through emails, so it just comes right to me. Um,
And
yeah.
we'll put your socials up so people can connect with you
Yeah,
that way if they're more comfortable DMing you or what have you.
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I welcome it.
Well, Grant, we're blessed, man. I know we could have gone on and a lot more to it, but um, I appreciate your honesty. I appreciate your story, and I appreciate like your message on suffering. That's hard. That's super
Mm.
hard. But I'm super pleased at the Lord bringing you through and what's in store for you guys next.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for having me. This is a gift to get to share. Honestly, I look back on that part of my story now with a lot of gratitude, which is weird. I would have never said that a year ago.
Isn't that what people say? Isn't that crazy how
Yeah,
the Lord puts it all together?
yeah, yeah.
Well, man,
So this was a blessing.
we'll be tracking your story, man. Bless you, Grant. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you guys.
And
Appreciate it.
take care.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the Storyfield podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The Storyfield.